This show is sponsored by Horizon HVAC, who you can count on for all of your heating and cooling needs. Today's episode is brought to you by Burns Roofing, your trusted roofing experts right here in Rhode Island. Whether you're in need of repairs, a roof full replacement, or just some professional advice, Burns Roofing has you covered. With their years of experience and commitment to quality, you can rest easy knowing your home is in good hands. Call Burns Roofing for all your roofing needs. All right, here we are. Mindset Radio Podcast. We are here with Brad Dean, running for mayor of Cumberland, and I'm excited for this one. We're going to dive deep into some issues that caught my attention. Being a longtime resident of Cumberland, 37 years, I've seen it. I've seen it all. I know a lot of people in Cumberland, and the support that you have right now is catching my attention as well.
I appreciate that. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to start with this. What inspired you to run for mayor in the first place?
So, bit of a long story, but I'll dive into it. So it started back in 2021. Mayor Murray, the previous mayor, had purchased a 229 parcel of land up by Mercy Mount, northernmost part of Cumberland. And within that 229 acres, there was an 18-acre parcel that was designated for sports fields. Me and my father, being lifelong Cumberland residents, having business in town, we approached the current mayor with an idea for that field and talked to Jeff, who looped in Bill Murray because he was the one that orchestrated that whole purchase back in 2017. And it was me, my father, Jeff, Mayor Murray, and the head of the water department, Chris Champy, at the time. And we had a meeting up there. And I had a local company do a rendition of a couple baseball fields, a big field, a little field, and they left enough room for 3 open space fields for soccer, lacrosse, a couple concession stands, pickleball courts, basketball courts. And the idea of it was our family was going to donate the big ball field and the small ball fields. And with the town approval, I was going to then loop in the other local sports organizations to help, fund, along with some of the small businesses in town, to help fund the rest of it. And I was looking from the town. So at the time, they had just received all this COVID money from the federal government. One of the acceptable uses was for water. It was roughly a $200,000 bill to get the water up to the fields for irrigation. So that was really all I was looking for the town to provide. And the rest of it, we were going to kind of take the ball and run with it.
You were going to provide the rest?
Yes, me and the other organizations in town.
Correct.
A couple of weeks go by, month goes by, heard nothing. Reached out a couple times, no response. And basically became a dead issue. So to me, that's like I'm handing you a gift. That's an easy one.
Yeah, take it.
Yeah. I mean, for $200,000, we've frivolously spent other larger amounts of money on different things in town that I found out now throughout this process. So that was phase 1. Phase 2, about a year later, my 2 cousins, a bunch of guys I went to high school with, they were all up on Staples Road, which is a road in Cumberland. And there's like 11 or 12 of us up there, and it's all guys we went to high school with. So I figured, what a great spot to have your kids. So I started looking for properties up there. There were 2 houses that came on the market. I made bids on both of them, unfortunately got outbid. And then it was brought to my attention by one of my friends, Lou Barrows, who's a realtor in town, that there was this 7-acre parcel of land available. It was the last lot up there. And, you could get me in touch with the realtor and, maybe take a look at it. That was kind of where it started. So with that land, because of where Staples Road is, it's an old school 1800 horse carriage road. Not developed. There was a lot of ledge, a lot of dirt. The previous owner was Charles McMillan. Met with him and the realtor and basically cut a deal to buy that parcel. Now, it's just beyond where the town road ended. There's a cul-de-sac. So when it turns back into a dirt road. So as part of what came as part of that land deed was a minimal improvement. It was supposed to be a 20-foot wide road with reprocessed asphalt that I was to maintain. The town was not to maintain it, which means my mailbox, trash, all had to be brought down the road to the cul-de-sac where the town pickup and that stuff could happen. I was going to be responsible for plowing that road, which is fine. I have a plow truck. I can take care of that. As that purchase came to a close.
And you agreed on that, though?
Yeah, that was part of the deal. That was signed off on the town. Yeah. back in, actually it was January 4th of 2019.
Okay.
So 2 years before I even came into the picture on this land. I bought that lot, and I noticed that by buying that lot, it had landlocked a 6-acre piece behind my lot. So I reached out to the owner direct, and I said, he owed some back taxes on it. It was a couple grand of back taxes. I said, hey, what do you say? What are you doing with that land? He's like, nothing. And so I said, what do you say? You get some, I'll pay the back taxes, I'll give you a little extra cash and call it a day.
Solid business deal.
Yeah. He says, yeah, absolutely. So we start that process, and then I do the title search on it. Title comes back with an easement on that property, but it was an easement to nowhere because it was landlocked. I thought that was a little odd. So I just approached the town solicitor at the time, and I asked her, I said, hey, I'm looking to buy this land. What's the deal with this? Well, it all went downhill.
Can you just explain what an easement is to some people that may be listening that don't know?
Yeah, so an easement is like a right of way to the property. So my parcel was part of a larger development that was supposed to happen at the time. Long and short of it, it basically fell apart. The town allowed him to abandon the development. And I guess, found this out after the fact, but I guess as part of that, he was supposed to donate that 6-acre piece to what's called the Cumberland Land Trust. It's a local organization in town that maintains rural atmosphere and property within the town. That it had that easement going nowhere because it was landlocked. Well, the solicitor then all of a sudden flips out saying, I got to put an easement on my property to give access to that property. And this land needs to be donated to the Cumberland Land Trust, which I knew nothing about. And, I said, no, I'm not putting an easement on my property. I don't want to wake up at 5 a.m. with some guy walking across my front lawn. Mm-hmm. Then then it started to go downhill from there. So I abandoned the idea of going after that 6-acre parcel and, started going on my merry way. In the meantime, I met with the Cumberland Land Trust. They had no use for it. They didn't want it because it was landlocked. They couldn't access it. So they didn't want to pay the $2,000 in back taxes because it wasn't worth it to them. January, that lot comes up on the tax sale records with the town. So I'm like, oh, okay, maybe they had a change of heart. So I go to the tax auction. I bid on the property. I get the property. And, and all hell breaks loose. I stop building my house. Then the town comes after me, the solicitor in particular, and says that agreement that I bought on my first property was not a legal document, even though it was signed by the town and the DPW at the time. It's not a legal document. So starts fighting me on it. Now, being born and raised in town, father born and raised in town, grandparents, we had a discussion, and in lieu of fighting it, because they would have held up my building permit if I did fight it. In lieu of fighting it, I decided to acquiesce to what they wanted to do. So they basically wanted to make it a official town road at my expense. And, the one thing they gave me a variance on was the width of the road. They wanted a 26-foot road. They agreed to a 20-foot road. Agreed to it, went to planning approved it. Boom, now I can start building a house. So I start building a house. Took about a year and a half to complete. It was December 10th of 23. The house was signed off on as complete and safe to live in. So I go to try and get my CO. Now I'd sent the original plan for the road back in April of 22. This thing went back and forth 10 different times. All little changes here, little changes there, all unnecessary. This is a dirt road. You get 5 cars a month on it. And that is kind of where we ended with a kind of a stalemate. They wouldn't issue the CO until the road was completed.
And that's the certificates of
occupancy. Yes, correct. Since then, they finally approved my road plan on August of 24, 2 years later, and I built the road. And I have a binder coat down. I had to put a guardrail in. I had to do some additional blasting. And, it was an additional $130,000 investment.
That you didn't probably want to spend, but you did it in order to uphold by the guidelines that they were providing.
Yeah, I was trying to play nice with the town.
Yeah.
Because I live here, born and raised here.
Right.
It's like, so I acquiesced to their demand. And to this day, still don't have a CO, even though I have a binder coat down, guardrail down. Now they want the top coat down, even though there's no requirement to have a top coat down. If you go, there's other properties in town. There's one currently being built right now that has a binder coat down. It's a 3-house development. There's actually a development in Tuscan Court right off of Diamond Hill Road that was done 10 years ago. Never did top coat, still has a binder coat on it. And there's 15, 20 houses in there, all occupied. The way it looks on my end is that, they're singling me out. They're not holding me, they're holding me to a different standard than everybody else in town. That was when all of a sudden it was like, okay, you know what? I started looking around town. I started seeing other businesses, Duffy's Funeral Home, 3 years to get a parking lot done and a crematory. JB Cody Construction, 1.5 years in. Murfield Farm, a horse farm that was already half constructed, holding up her CO and her permitting process. And that was when all of a sudden, me and my cousin has been sitting down talking about this for a little while. And then, it was that point where I decided that, this is not something I ever aspired to do or wanted to do. It's just something that has to be done.
I think that's how a lot of great leaders fall into positions like this. It's not necessarily a position that they want to take on, but they see an opening and they're like, you know what, something needs to be done. And I feel like that I could be the person to do it.
Yeah, something needs to change. This town, I love this town. I love the people in the town. I've lived there all my life. And you're right.
And you guys have a great reputation in this town. The Deans are very prominent. You guys have done a lot for this town. I want to talk a little bit about the banners because that's something that you brought up to my attention that really bothered me. And this is basic economics, basic business. So there's a company out of New York that is providing these banners, company banners up and down Mendon Road and Diamond Hill Road.
Correct.
I know because I have 2 of them for both of my businesses, and they charged us $1,400 per banner. Those banners probably cost, I think we actually looked into it, those banners cost around $350 to make. That other money is not going to the town. It's going to a company based out of New York who's providing those for these companies.
Correct.
Right? Why wouldn't the town of Cumberland, and to boot, who's installing them?
Town employees. The
town employees of Cumberland. So our tax dollars are going to use to a company out of New York that's profiting 100% off of this design. I mean, how many signs do you think are up and down Mendon Road? There's at least 100 on each road.
They have a list on their website. I think they're up to 150.
150. So let's do the math on that really quick. So there's 150, right?
Yep.
You do times 1,400. That's $210,000, right? We take out 350. That's $149,000 that could be going back into the town of Cumberland if we keep it within the town of Cumberland. Not to mention the labor that it's costing us to put those up.
100%.
You got to get a truck out there. You got to get 2 guys, one to hold the ladder, one to install them.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That could easily be a change to where we could take that money and put it into infrastructure, such as the building on Diamond Hill or these centers that it's just simple economics.
Yeah. Even give it back to the schools or do some kind of scholarship with it, or, help the sports teams that are local in town. I mean, there's a million different ways a Sunday you can use that money.
So who approves that? Who approves that decision to let somebody from out of town come in here, use our poles and our land to profit off of?
If I'm running the town, that will go through me. I can only assume that it went through town hall because it came from town hall. Because they also do a video program as well. And that's just one example. That's a low hanging fruit type example, in my opinion, of just how, somebody with a business mindset would be like, oh, you know what? Somebody might come to the town with that idea, but then it's like, I'm going to use it and go to somebody local and do it that way.
Yeah.
Why send all our money to Rochester, New York? Let's keep it in town.
Let's keep it in town.
Yeah.
That's how it should be.
So that's what happened. I emailed the company when they sent this program to me because I was on the list. And I said, what does the town get out of this? And they said aesthetic streetscapes. And I'm like, I don't even,
yeah.
I'm like, really? That's all we get out of this?
I mean, it's cool. Listen, it's a cool idea.
Yeah.
It promotes local business, especially if that business is from Cumberland.
Right.
I think it's cool being able to see all of our friends' companies out, you know what I mean? But if it's not, keep it within the town.
Yeah.
Keep it in town.
There's no reason why we couldn't have local businesses doing this job. Let's
jump back to your house. So Mutter made a comment the other day stating that you were occupying that house. Is that correct?
He did, yes.
Ash, can you play that really quick? Because I just want to clarify this. And by any means, I just want to make this very clear on this podcast. The intention of this podcast is to put out information that is true. We're not trying to bash anybody. We're not trying to take sides. I am not trying to take sides. Sheena's not trying to take sides. Nobody here is taking sides, but we want to get to the truth.
Yep.
And if we have to dig through things and we have to pull up information to answer questions, we'll do that. And I welcome anybody from any side to come onto this podcast and voice their opinion as well. So let's just take a look at this clip really quick and go from there.
You know, the most recent town council meeting clearly showed, in my opinion, the difference in our campaign and our opponents. There was a spirited discussion about accessory dwelling units and the impact they would have on our residents' quality of life. Now, our opponent was in attendance, but chose not to speak that night on that matter. He did, however, speak under public comment on his own personal grievance. He once again made unfounded accusations, but I want to zero in on how he responded to him residing in his house illegally. And here's that clip.
And to this point, I have not been living there.
So are you currently living there?
No.
Have you ever lived there?
No. I'm currently living with my cousin. I was with my parents before that.
And Jay, you can attest he does not live there.
He is staying with me in my spare room, and he's a horrible roommate. So not living there. But it's a completed house, so it's very, very odd. He's there a lot. I'm there a lot. You know, it's ready to move into.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, every time I see you, either one of you guys are together. It's very clear that you guys are close and spend a lot of time together. It just blows my mind that as a political weapon to be able to weaponize your opponent with straight lies.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're saying that you're not living there, show us the proof.
Yeah.
And I actually implore Mutter to please contact me, and we can do either a Zoom or he can come in studio. And I'd love to hear his side on how he where the evidence is that you did live there. Because if you did, then that's an issue. But if you didn't, and you're saying that you didn't, then the people of Cumberland need to know that.
Yeah, 100%.
Keep playing, Ash.
Brad Dean Road, also A2 designation. Brad Dean Road.
So when I say we matter, it's not just a campaign slogan. We attempt every day to make decisions to improve or maintain the quality of life here in town. Now, we think we have the results that demonstrate that commitment.
You used your address,
And that's what a campaign.
but that doesn't mean you're living
mayor
there. And
Correct.
that's what he's trying to use against you, that you've utilized the physical address, but
Yes.
you've never physically lived in the home.
Correct. And it's like, yeah, I plan on living there. I
Yeah.
mean, was I going to put my parents' address? I mean, I bought the property, built the house. I was planning on being in there.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's going to be my residence.
Yeah.
kind of like the same as we were talking about. Both of us were in the military. When you're in the military, you have what's called a home of record, and you don't live there, but that's the address you use. You know,
Yes.
and he built the house. The house is in existence. It was in existence before he decided to run for mayor, and he uses the address as his address.
And the real issue here is that you've complied with the town of Cumberland in order to live in your home that you would love to be able to share with your children. So the real issue is, why aren't you in your home? You'd love to be able to say, yes, I live there. But after putting in a road, following all of the X, Y, and Z's, you're still not there. So what is the next step for you in order to be able to live in the home that you've paid for?
So what I'm hearing is I'll be issued a temporary 30-day CO, which means a top coat has to be done on the driveway, the road, in order to get the full CO.
So a top coat for a road, is that something that's mandatory? Does everybody have a top coat, or is that standard? What is a top coat necessarily?
So when you do a development, so what happens is, and I should have mentioned this earlier, but they make the developer take out a bond, which is typically for the final pieces, which is the road, guardrails, any safety issues, the safety things that need to be put into place. I have a bonded road. But what the bond ensures to the town is that if I don't finish that road, they can call the bond and the insurance company will finish the road, and then they come after me for the money. So they're really not at any kind of a loss. And it's not odd for a developer to have a bonded road when they're doing 15 different houses. It could take 2 years. They leave it as a binder coat until all of the construction is done, because you don't want to put a top coat on and then have heavy equipment riding over the top of it. Yeah. This is going to chew it up, which is where I'm at now. Because it's like, I'm not ready to do the top coat because I have a steep driveway and I still have work to do, landscaping and stuff like that. I'm still going to have some heavy equipment up there. So I really wasn't planning on doing the top coat in the spring. Why I want to do it in conjunction with the road, my driveway, is because of the steep pitch of the driveway. I don't want to have a seam where my driveway meets the road. I want it to be one contiguously paved swath. Mm-hmm. So this way, the water, which will end up pooling there, in the wintertime freezing and breaking up my driveway.
Plow trucks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't have to worry about repairing that thing every couple of years, especially because I'm the one paying to put the road in. Yeah. It's like I should be able to have a little bit of leeway as to when I can finish the top. There's no safety issue having a binder road. It's done all over town. Every development out there.
I want to move on to the next topic, but before we do, what is the solution to this? What is the solution?
Just real quick, I was at the council meeting that the mayor was referencing in his video, and during that council meeting, his solicitor came out and said that the temporary CO was already issued, and that was last Wednesday. So that was incorrect. But the other incorrect thing that he had said in that meeting was that Brad was involved in the negotiations between the mayor, former Mayor Murray, and the owner of the property. He was involved in those negotiations to put that document into the lot that said he didn't have to do the paving, and that's just straight out false. That's a blatant lie. There, and I on Facebook today I called out a few of his troll supporters, and I said, well, the mayor says in the video, I'll talk with anybody anytime about this, and I said, let's talk with him. Let's get that proof. Show us the proof that Brad was involved in that, because that's what's been going on this whole time. He puts out these the misinformation, and it just keeps it spreads like wildfire with all of his supporters online, but nobody ever provides the proof.
Yeah, where is the proof? Yeah,
it was 2 years later. I even looked at that lot.
Yeah.
So it's like I obviously wasn't involved in any kind of deal on the way.
So he was saying that you were involved in the final decision of that?
Yeah, he was saying that the deal was done with me, but it wasn't. It was done with the previous owner.
Previous owner and the previous
and you weren't.
Mayor.
Yeah.
You clearly weren't.
Clearly weren't. No, not at all. I didn't even know a lot existed until everybody Lou told me.
In my opinion, misinformation needs to be held to some standard of accountability.
Agreed.
It can't just be this thing, because I feel like misinformation is something that's being used a little bit more frequently than I'd like to see.
I would agree.
It's kind of one of those things where you can use to attack somebody, and that if you get a certain amount of people to believe it, it's like that village mentality. You get one person to say one story, it may not hold that much weight. But you get 6 people to tell the same story, then that story is going to just carry on forever.
Correct.
And that's what ends up happening is you get one of these stories that gets out of control, and all of his followers, they say the same story, even though it's not valid. Him saying that you live in that residence, him saying that, his followers are going to think that, believe that. When they have conversations at coffee with their friends, they're going to talk about that. The Valley Breeze picked it up. But it's misinformation. It's not true.
Correct.
And again, this isn't to go at anybody, but this is to find out the truth. And I do challenge anybody to come on this podcast and set that straight. And I'd love to hear their side of the story, because from a non-biased standpoint. Let's go on to some of your policies, because I see on the Cumberland Concerns website, which we love, a ton of support on there. A lot of my friends are on there. A lot of what I'm seeing is Brad Dean has not shown us any type of policy. What is his plan? What are some of the things that you plan on doing? What are some of the things that are at the top of your board to start doing right away?
Some of it ties into the slogan on the sign with the Reunite Cumberland. I'd like to start, there's a lot of places I want to start, but fiscal responsibility is going to be number one. That'll be the driving factor. So we're going to find a finance director that's top notch, that knows municipal finance up and down, because you got to control the spending. I mean, I see the spending going out the door left and right, yet we keep increasing taxes every year. We want to level load, if not decrease taxes. I mean, that's what everybody wants to see. Nobody wants their 3-4% tax increase every year. And I totally understand that. There's got to be a ceiling somewhere. And I think you can start by controlling the expenses and some of the costs. And by doing some of that, we're going to put a structure in place across the board as far as some of the town departments go. Some of the stuff that I've seen, and I've talked to a lot of town employees. There's a division there between your town hall and town departments. We've lost a lot of good employees over the past several years that have been the long-term employees. Chris Champy being one of them on the water department. Going down North Kingston because he was just done with dealing with the town of Cumberland. And it's a shame that it got to that point for him as well as several others. But I think that if you have the right structure in place, just for example, it's like the highway department. There's no PM system for equipment. It's just like you get your oil change, your car, every time you hit 3,000 to 5,000 miles, right? You got to have the same structure with the equipment. Otherwise, equipment falls apart. But there's no tracking of any of that. The guys aren't doing walk-arounds on the equipment. There's no accountability. There's no trucks being assigned to anybody. And that's just like a small thing. But I think we got to carry a different structure through the town in order to make sure that we're creating the most efficiency that we can, which is going to bring the dollars to the bottom line. I mean, that's how you run a business, right? Like if I wasn't showing a profit every month,
Absolutely.
I'm not going to be in business too long running it that way.
Yep. Or at least make sure that if you're not showing a profit, it's for a reason.
Yeah,
it's for a reason, right? You're thinking a little bit ahead.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which some people don't understand. But you run many successful businesses. How many warehouses do you have? So
we operate currently about 2.1 million square feet.
That's incredible.
We have 8 warehouses, and it started in Rhode Island. So I've been with the family business for about 23 years. Me and my father, and he started it back in 1977. So we just celebrated our 45th year in business.
Congratulations.
And since that, in that time period, we've now expanded. We have 2 locations in California and 1 in Georgia.
Wow.
With over 100 employees.
So you have experience in business. What is your vision for small businesses in Cumberland?
Yeah, I think small business is an integral part of the town. I mean, the tax base, bringing jobs to the community. We need to cut, from what I've seen, we need to cut through the red tape that we currently have in town hall, and then even maybe incentivize some business to come to town, whether that be some kind of tax incentive, some kind of give back that way. There's a lot of different ways to do that. Tax stabilization type agreements for businesses tied to the amount of employees that you actually bring in. The percentage of them have to be from the town type scenario. I mean, there's many ways that we can go about helping out the small business in town, going after some grants. We just started a
grant writing team.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're going to be launching very soon the Cumberland Coalition for Small Business. And the idea of that organization is going to be looking for some of these grants to ease the process for a startup company. Maybe have some grant money for a startup company, that we can give to some of these businesses, because, it's very difficult right now to start a business. There's so many different T's and I's that have to be dotted. Yeah. They don't make the process easy at all.
I like the website, by the way. Who's doing that?
Yeah, we got one of the volunteers in the group.
Oh, good.
He runs a website company.
So it's launching in October. Cumberland Coalition for Small Business. What is the main focus? I know you said you wanted to bring grant money in to help small businesses and to kind of. Are you going to possibly put together a program to where you can teach people about how to start an LLC or an incorporation? And
yes,
because that's what I'd really like to get into. And this is something that me and Sheena really hold dear to our heart. Helping and rehabilitating people who need to get out of the system.
Yes, definitely.
We'd like to help people that have an addiction issue or have been in trouble their whole life and they just get caught in the system. Because I know a lot of good people who have gotten caught in the system, and then when they get out of the system, they don't know what's going on. They don't know what to do. So we want to try to put together a program where we can place them somewhere, something similar to this, and teach them how to start a business, teach them what a corporation is, teach them, how not easy, but how simple it can be to actually, be in business for yourself, because, that's, I think we do need to bring more small business to this town.
So, you're right. Creating a single source spot. Because I mean, if you've been on the state website trying to find out how to start a small business is like needle in a haystack.
It's
It's
impossible.
overwhelming.
It
is.
and
It is. It's
That's
very
where a lot of
overwhelming.
people who need the help get deterred from doing that because they're like, oh my gosh, no, never mind.
Yeah.
There's like 500 papers I have to fill out and I don't even
You've
know
looked. You've looked.
Yeah.
It was a nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So now you can go here and we'll have all that information easy to find, and we'll have a resource available through some of the volunteer effort that can guide people in the right direction in order to start up a business.
The catalyst of the Cumberland Small Business Coalition was because it was so hard to cut through the red tape of the town. There were so many stories about businesses that were teetering on failing because the town gave them the wrong information or was completely not being lenient with the way that they coded things or they zoned things, and they seemed to bend over backwards for bigger business. Yeah. So we were trying to organize a small business into a coalition so they would present as a bigger business, and that the town would have to deal with the coalition as a bigger business. So if there was an issue that the town was holding up a business from opening, we could say, hey, give them the waiver so that they can do business, and that way they don't go under. And then when we straighten it out, we'll get the paperwork right later on. But your knee-jerk reaction shouldn't be, let's shut this business down. It should be, let's get this business open. If we know we're going to approve it anyway, let's get this business open. Let's get them bringing money in. Let's get them feeding their families, and then we'll deal with the paperwork later. We'll make it right. We'll make it right later. And that's kind of how come a lot of these guys, they came together to form that, so that they can support each other.
That sounds good too. That's putting people before profit. And if we could just go back to the basics of taking care of our people, we are the best country, but imagine if we actually took care of our own.
Oh yeah, absolutely. 100%. We need to get back to that.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
So what about education? How do you feel about where the education system is in Cumberland at the moment?
So right now the education system is going in the right direction, as we've seen with some of the scores and stuff that have come back.
Yeah, I agree.
We need to maintain that and keep it going in that direction. I think the idea, I know we were doing a lot of Band-Aids on these schools recently right now. This ties into kind of controlled growth in town as well. I think that in order to maintain the education level that we have currently going, we need to make sure we keep the teachers. They got to be at a competitive salary. To have a teacher in town 5 years, that's a great teacher, and then to leave to go to a neighboring town because they're making an extra $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. Like we can't have that. We need to set the bar. We don't want to be chasing the bar. And that's going to be a lot through some of the state funding, and hopefully we get some good channels that we can reach up to the state and just keep hammering on it. It's like, hey, show me the money type thing for Cumberland, and that's the difference. We're going to be actually doing that. But I do think that. And this is a big vision, but also stems into that reunite Cumberland.
We love big visions, man.
Yeah. Yes. So it's like, got to think big, right? This is probably outside of the first 4 years, but hopefully 8. I didn't realize, but the town actually owns a 125 acre parcel of land behind Tucker Field, which is where the high school is currently. I think that instead of putting these Band-Aids on schools right now, like we're doing, which is actually taking away from some of the amount of students that can go there, if we were to build a big state-of-the-art high school like some of these other towns are doing, like Warwick just got approved for it, like Central Falls just opened theirs.
Beautiful high school.
Yeah, absolutely.
Incredible.
Now,
Falls. Yeah.
You take North Cumberland Middle, South Cumberland, used to be South Cumberland Middle, now it's McCourt.
Yeah.
Because born and raised in town, that was always the dividing north and south of town.
Yeah.
So now you can take those two schools, move them, renovate the old high school, move them into the old high school. Now they graduate from there across the street. Now you have two schools that can handle the growth that we see happening in Cumberland right now.
Yeah.
I love that idea.
We have to be a competitor with a lot of these other schools. I mean, if Central Falls is coming up with the means to put a facility like that together, there's no reason why a town like Cumberland shouldn't be able to do the same thing.
Correct.
And I know that starts, that's easier said than done. And there's a lot of groundwork that needs to go into that, and a lot of teamwork and putting the right people together in order to make that happen. There's going to come a point to where I'm seeing that all of our surrounding towns are improvising their schools, their stadiums tremendously. and we're not doing much with ours. I would have loved to see that practice field in the back of the high school. Just do something with it. You know, it's just dirt. And, you know, I grew up playing there. You know, I didn't care back then. But there comes a time where, you know, now I have kids and I want to see them have a better time in school than I did. Like, I'd love to see something to do with that land. Is that the land that you're talking about, that parcel of land back there?
For the Mercy Woods?
It's where the
Well,
practice field is in the back of the high school.
I know
right
what
now.
you're talking about. So the difference is right now the high school controls that.
Okay.
The town doesn't control that.
What land are you talking about?
So Mercy Woods is it's over by Mercy
No,
Mount.
he
It's in the
means-
northern part of
He
the.
means the 127
Oh,
acres
125
behind-
acres.
It's on the other side of Tucker.
So it's behind the football field.
So
where the where we
yeah,
go
so-
for
okay.
soccer.
Where that soccer,
Oh,
yeah, the
gotcha,
soccer
gotcha,
field's
gotcha.
over there. It's
Gotcha.
125 acres. I know some of it's wet, but part of what we'll do is figure out what kind of portion of that is developable.
I
and
really like
start
that
pitching it.
idea that you said, like unifying the
Yeah.
north and south of Cumberland. So I'm new to Rhode Island.
Yep.
Just became a resident this year. But when I moved into Cumberland, that was actually the deciding factor. I knew I had to find a home in a specific spot of Cumberland for my children to go on this side. And I'm an outsider, but I already knew that my children would not favor going to McCourt. And it's sad that you're one town, but you're really truly divided by that. So it's such a legit issue
is.
here in Cumberland.
Yeah, it is. I question on that one all the time.
Yeah.
The reunite thing.
What do you think the state of the police and fire department are at right now?
So police and EMS, they just got a new building under the Murray administration, and I think they're actually in a pretty good spot right now. But the firehouses around town definitely need a little bit of
Yeah.
TLC to them. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of them, if you look inside, the floors are deteriorating. They're kind of falling apart, and some of that is something that we need to put a little bit of attention towards because it's just not. It's in a rough shape right now.
Yeah. Will you be prepared to take on all of this, you and your team, and still be able to manage your businesses at the same time?
So I've spent the last year making sure that I could step away from the business, and two reasons why I can. So number one, I've surrounded myself with good people.
Yeah.
So my number two and number three guy, they can certainly carry the day as far as the warehouse goes. And then over the past year, we've been solidifying some long-term leases, both on buildings and with customers, so that basically I can step away from the business in order to put my full attention onto the town. I'll still be managing some of the financial side of things. But other than that, I mean, the sales side and everything else, I'll be bowing out of that one.
Yeah. So Horizon HVAC just ended up, we're in talks of getting the building on the side of the high school, the old
Yep.
nuts and bolts building.
Yes.
But hearing you talk about small businesses being treated in Cumberland is kind of discouraging.
Agreed.
What do you think we can do to change that?
We are going to have to, like I said earlier, cut through the red tape. To preface this, like I said earlier, this isn't a bashing session, but I do think that the truth needs to be exposed on some certain aspects that's going on in Cumberland. One being this solicitor. About 2.5 years ago, the solicitor became a partner in her law firm in Providence. Then sat down and met with the mayor, and they basically cut a deal that instead of paying her $125,000 a year salary, they would pay her law firm a $102,000 retainer. So they touted in the paper that, oh, look at this, we just saved the money, $23,000 plus, benefits. When in actuality, all that did was open up a can of worms because our lawsuits at that time are roughly averaging about 4 to 5 a year. Jumped up to 17, and our legal expenses went up roughly 56%. It's a complete conflict of interest, the fact that we have a solicitor who is a partner in the law firm that's handling the town cases. So there's no incentive to settle any of these cases. There's only the incentive to carry them on. And, I'd like to, it started with, the Murfield farm, the horse farm that we had talked about. This woman was going to build 17 stables and had to build a riding ring because she wanted to be able to stable horses in the winter, because there's still a lot of people locally that have horses, but they don't have the capability or the facility in order to store them in the winter. I've learned a lot about horses in the past couple of years. This Murfield farm, they had the approvals under the previous building official. 3 approvals. And then come to find out, 30 days later, they all were rescinded. And which caused her to have to hire an attorney, spend an insurmountable amount of money in order to fight the town on this. When she had DEM approval, state approval, to do what it is that she wanted to do on her agricultural land. So we reached out to the previous building official, sat down with him, and he came right out and said it. Kelly Morris Salvatore is the one who made me rescind these approvals, and we couldn't figure out why. And then we find out she has a friend that lives on the edge of the farm who didn't want the traffic from the horse, everything else, which I'm sorry, but it's an agriculturally zoned. Towns pay millions of dollars to get a horse farm and to keep 40 acres of open space available in the town. And here we are trying to crush them. So 2 years later, we helped and came to her defense. And in the end, now she has the riding ring built and is enjoying what she was supposed to enjoy 2 years ago. And this is just one example. There's other businesses in town. Duffy's Funeral Home had the same issue, 3-year period just to pave a parking lot, and then put a crematorium in that they already had approvals for back in the 80s that town fought them on. So the structure of what we have in town hall right now does not work. It needs to be changed and corrected. I mean, previous to this, we had a part-time solicitor at the cost of $25,000 a year, which 4 to 5 cases a year, you can probably get away with hiring a part-time solicitor. But when you have 17 cases, you need a full-time firm, apparently.
So they go from 5 to 17.
Yeah. Yep.
And she's making money.
She's making money
on all
on the back
17.
end. Yep. Absolutely.
I mean, I'm not that great at math, but it doesn't seem like it adds up.
No, it does not.
What do you think of affordable housing?
So
Do we need more of
housing,
it? Do we need less of it?
I know there's a time and a place for it, and I know that the state is pushing this down on a lot of the towns right now. So we currently have in our town charter, we have it's called ADU, accessory dwelling unit, provision in it that allows for the building of another dwelling, whether for a family member specifically. And the state right now, I mean, we have an infrastructure in town that can't handle the population we have. I don't think that throwing up all this housing everywhere is good for the infrastructure we currently have. I think we need to, we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves on this one. And we need to make sure the town can handle the support we have. I mean, we have a school system that's busting out of the seams. I don't know where you're going to end up putting those kids. We have a potential 400 condos coming online in the next 2 years. I don't know where they're going to put those kids. So, I mean, I want to maintain the rural environment that I grew up in this town. I mean, when I grew up here, there was operating farms, dairy farms. Now you don't have any farms really operating. And I don't think we need to plug the hole with a bunch of houses, affordable housing units. Yeah. And, the state's changing all of the zoning requirements and that across the board. They're essentially trying to eliminate zoning and planning. And from what I see, it's, they're trying to get to the level where if you want to have something done in your property, you go to the state for it instead of the town. That doesn't work for me. We're a town. We have our own town charter in place in order to handle stuff that pops up. And that is what we have created over several hundred years. And that is what we should be living by. Just because the state wants to push down on top of the towns, I'm not really aligned with that.
Yeah.
But we have the ordinances too. I'm not sure if the ADUs are in the charter or the ordinance, but one of the criticisms that I've had is that the town council, for the most part, seems like a rubber stamp, and because of that, they don't look into these. They don't look deep into these ordinances. Like he was talking about Murfield Farm. The justification they used to hold her up for 2 years was the fact that horses weren't legal in Cumberland, but they were legal for residential, but not for agricultural. So they could have easily just with a pen swipe let her complete her farm and alleviated the need for any kind of a lawsuit, and then did the ordinance later on to correct that and let her continue with her. Everybody said it was going to happen. It just hadn't happened yet. So why would they shut her down and stop her from building her business until they did an ordinance fix? And it took 2 years. They could have done it at the next council meeting and just pen whip that. But the thing about the accessory dwelling units, So our town ordinance has them as like an in-law apartment almost. So you can build on your footprint, or if you have a 20,000 or larger lot, you can build an additional dwelling. But what the ordinance also says is that after that person passes or goes into a assisted living home, that you lose the ability to have that structure. You're not allowed to put anybody else in it. So it almost disqualifies an accessory dwelling unit or an in-law apartment, because who has the money to build a 900 square foot separate building with all the utilities at a cost of probably $150,000 to $200,000 for your 62-year-old ailing parent, and then when they're 65, they go to another facility, or God forbid they pass, and now you're supposed to wait 20-something years until you need that unit, so you have to let that $200,000 building rot in your backyard, and you can't use it for anything else. So, if I was a council person, I'd read that, and that would be my first question. We've been to 2 meetings now, where they talk about these accessory dwelling units, and nobody brings that up. And the reason is because they just basically do whatever the mayor tells them to do. And we're trying to have people look more critically at these things, and to err on the side of helping people out.
Transparency.
Yeah. And like we said, sign off on this person being able to continue building their business, and we'll fix the paperwork later. Have an outlet for somebody who builds this accessory dwelling unit. And then when their parent passes, it's not just an eyesore in their backyard that is rotting under the weight of the, of the climate, and you have to maintain it, but you can't rent it, because that would prevent people from doing those things. So I think there's, like Brad says, there's affordable housing, and there's, our infrastructure won't handle it. There's a happy medium somewhere, where we can bring more affordable housing as long as we prep the infrastructure first, and after the infrastructure is updated, then we can slowly bring in these accessory dwelling units, so that we don't overtax our infrastructure. I mean, everybody in Cumberland knows that the traffic just in the last 5 years has gotten
tripled.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
You sit at Nate Whipple Highway, Diamond Hill Road. You sit on Broad Street. You go down to the construction on Minden Road.
Get it.
Yeah, even without the construction, traffic was unbelievable. But so if you put 600 more units, 2 cars per unit into the town, it's just going to get worse. We have to do the work first.
I think that's what we all want, is just transparency. We just want, there's issues, but if we handle these issues as adults, as professionals, we handle them together without saying you're right, you're wrong, and we come together and hear both sides and form an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's how things get done properly. And there's going to be a couple of people who don't agree with that. But listen, not everybody's always going to agree with every single little thing.
No.
You have to do what's best for the people of the town of Cumberland.
Correct.
At the end of the day. So that brings me to my last question. How will you ensure transparency and accessibility of local government under your leadership?
Oh, yeah. We're going to be all about transparency. We're going to have whether it be through a weekly newsletter, print in the paper,
Podcast.
Yep.
Yes.
Online source. I mean, we want to get it all out there. We want people to know what we're doing. We're not hiding anything.
Yeah.
There's no reason to hide it. Everybody should see it. And, that's very easy. It's like we're going to outline every dollar, big dollar we spend, and make sure that people know about it, what we're doing with it.
Yeah.
Instead, it's like, I don't know where half the money comes from, what we're spending it on. We're building a $8 million, Diamond Hill Community Center, but we have water pipes breaking, over the last month. I thought it was at 4 or 5 in the last month.
Yeah.
And those water pipes have reached their useful life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, why aren't we putting the money towards that? We did Diamond Hill Road back in 2016, 15. Menden Road should be the next one slated.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Transparency is huge. And I just want to bring it home with this. I think that we are all going into a new age where we are able to showcase this transparency through podcasting, through blogs, The Cumberland, Rhode Island Community Concerns page is incredible. For everybody watching from that page, I'm one of the owners of Horizon HVAC along with Mike Phillips, and you guys have shown nothing but love and support for our company, which I truly appreciate. But we want to try to bring that to a larger scale. Have Brad come in the podcast every week and go over what's going on in town, and not just these local meetups at the town of Cumberland where you have to attend and you have to try to find the link. And we want to try to put it on blast so everybody can see it, full transparency. And if you have questions, we're going to have it live so anybody can ask questions while we are live. And let's try to just bring this into the new age so everybody can be involved.
Agreed.
It's a small town. It's a small town. We all know each other. And I think if we just have a little bit more communication with transparency and hear each other out more, we can really do some big things. Brad, thank you for coming in. Yeah, and the best of luck to you guys, seriously.
Yeah, thank you very much, Brad. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.